so glad you're here. Okay, so let's go over. In the last video, I mentioned I was going to be doing summer sizing again, and I have been doing that all this week. Summer size is this summer sizing is what I call it. It's the diet, the lifestyle eating plan that Suzanne Summers put together back in the 90s, a long time ago. But it is one of the very few ways that I have ever been successful at losing weight. And not only was it successful, but it was, I want to say, easy, and it was enjoyable, and it was satisfying. And so I'm doing that again. I've done summer sizing twice in my life before. Once was in the 90s, which was widely successful. And then the second time was quite a bit later, like 6 years ago, and I did it while I was Weight Watching at the same time, and it wasn't as successful because I think I was watching the points and I was concentrating on the points and not really the nutrition or the amount of food that I actually needed to fuel the weight loss. And so now I've stepped back from that, and I feel like I'm relaxing and just able to concentrate on the Somersize program as it was intended to be. And it's really not, I want to say, a diet and a program, so to speak. It is more of just like a lifestyle and a way of eating. It's a food combining way of eating. And I eat a lot of the same things that I've eaten in the past, but there are some things that are taken out of the equation. Whereas when I was on Weight Watchers, I could eat everything, right? As long as I counted the points and I stayed within the points. And as many years as I've been doing that on Weight Watchers, it's really proven to be a very hard thing for me to do. I feel like, there's weeks where I'm staying on board and in the points and then still not seeing any progress, which was extremely frustrating. Or there's times where I'm trying to stay within the points, but the points keep spilling out of the glass, right? Because you order a hamburger and you can only eat so many points of the hamburger. Well, try to do that. You know what I mean? It can be tough. And so it just got to be a little frustrating. But anyway, the second time I did it when I was doing summer sizing, it just wasn't working out so well. So this time around, I am ditching the Weight Watchers and just concentrating on summer sizing again. And I want to say is enjoyable and satisfying again, and I'm seeing the weight loss. I've only been doing this a week, and I am down, I've been weighing every single day, and so I have been seeing it come down, stay the same, a couple, come down, and now I am down 2.2 pounds in the first week. And I know that it's not just water because my body, I think, has figured out that it's starting to release some weight, and it is trying to make me more hungry. And that's one of those things, my word of the year is mindfulness. To be mindful of are the body cues that I'm getting, and that is one of them, is that it's saying, you know what, you're starting to release weight and I don't want you to because, we must be in a famine. We don't want to get rid of the reserve that we have. So I'm going to make you more hungry. And so I'm going to be more aware of that. I did have a little bit more at my carbohydrate meal this morning, which I'll explain in a minute, until I was satisfied. And then for the rest of the day now, it's basically low carb for the next 2 meals. I don't have snacks because I don't need the snacks because I eat enough at each meal. And not to mention the way that it's set up in food combining, which I will explain in a little bit. There's really no room for snacks unless you're going to be having fruit, and you're going to be having that fruit and far enough away from each meal. So I don't even mess with it, and I just do not snack, period. I don't find that I need to snack because the meals are so satiating. Sometimes I think I'm not going to have dinner, but I remember she says not to skip the meals and have those 3 meals a day. So far, I've not skipped any, and I've been following along the plan quite well. So just really briefly before we get into the rest of the video and you see what I've been eating and explain a little bit more about it, there's two main things that I wanted to talk about here so you know what I'm doing, and that's the carbohydrate meal and the pro-fats meal. So the carbohydrate meal she talks about is when you have those, it's going to consist of whole grains. There are a lot of starches that are taken out, which you'll see later when we go over it. But you can have the carbo meals with non-fat dairy and protein, and then and vegetables if you want. But then the pro-fat meals, which are basically low carb meals, you can have pretty much any kind of meat or protein paired with vegetables. And that's basically the tenets of it, but there's some nuances that are very important that go along with that, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But for now, let me just show you some of the meals that I've been having. Hi everybody. All right, I have been really enjoying Somersizing. One of the things that you do on Somersize is keep your fruit separate, but one thing I have noticed is I'm okay with a little bit of berry if I add it to the non-fat meal, the carbohydrate meal. The carbo meal is what she calls it. And so I'm making some compote to put on my pancakes, which are whole grain oat pancakes, and I've got non-fat yogurt as well, and that's going to be a breakfast. I'm really, really loving this way of eating because I can still have my whole grain carbs and enjoy them. And then I can also still have like steak and butter, but I just can't have it with the carbohydrates meals. And so like this, right here, this is a wonderful meal, just a little burger patty with an omelet and some bacon and kimchi, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm not having any digestive trouble. I'm getting in my walking every day and lifting some weights as well. Dinner here is just a big salad and some roast with some cooked onions, and that was just great. It's very, very filling and satisfying. This is another breakfast where it's non-fat, lots of egg white. I've got some non-fat refried beans with a whole grain non-fat tortilla wrap, and just a little packet of oatmeal with some of the blueberries on top. And I've noticed I could use a little bit of nut pods. Nut pods are really low in fat, so just maybe one little splash in here just kind of gives a little bit more of a creamy texture. So I've really been appreciating that. There is so much that I can do with non-fat meals and so much that I can do with a low carb meal, and I feel like I get the best of both worlds doing Somersizing. I just have to combine them properly, and in doing so, there's so many things that are actually taken out of the equation. So no chips and candy and sugars and that kind of thing. They're not really on the table right now. Let's go over it. This was a book I failed to show you last time, but I had it in another room I was reading. Eat, Cheat, and Melt the Fat Away is part of her collection. If you ever find this one out at a thrift store or something, pick it up. It's really worth it. This is really the one that sold me on the program when it worked the first time for me. And she has, in all of her books, she has a lot of really wonderful pictures. They're so beautiful of all of her food. And it's just really, it all looks so good. And she has, one thing I really like this is that she has a lot of little photos and stuff from her family that make it almost looking, it's like you're looking through a photo album of her family over the years. And so she has a lot of personalized pictures in there. And then also, oh, look at this, doesn't it look great? This looks so good. She's got wonderful recipes. They're so simple too. Really super simple one-page recipes. Really easy to do and not crazy ingredients that you're going to be running all over town for. Every one of her books has basically a real quick tutorial on how to do the program. And she has a lot of testimonials of people who have done this and have succeeded. And it's always so nice and encouraging to read those. So very quickly, she'll put a one-page reference guide in every one of her books. And it's just, until you get used to it, it's just easy enough to make a copy of that or write it down and then just tack it onto your cupboard until you get used to it. It's very, very simple though. You just have to remember a few little rules. And basically, you're going to have two different kinds of meals, carbohydrate meals and protein fat meals. They're going to be separate because You really want to keep the carbs and the fats separate so that you don't store the fat and you get your insulin working better than it is while you're trying to lose weight. So number one is eliminate all the funky foods. What are funky foods? Funky foods are all listed here, and the reason why they're funky is because they hang up your weight loss in some way. They elicit some sort of insulin response that's going to help you to keep the weight on, and that's not what you want. So for the time being, you're going to get rid of sugars, beet sugars, of course, cane sugar, carrots, corn syrup, honey. I think on a later book, she rethought about carrots a little bit, depending on the person. If they did well with carrots or not, she might have added that back in. Corn syrup, honey, maple syrup, molasses, and of course, sugar. And that's all kinds, brown sugar, white sugar. Starches. Now, these starches will bring a bit of a quick insulin response, and they very quickly turn to sugar in your body, and that's why they're listed here while you're losing weight. Bananas, corn, pasta made from semolina or white flour, popcorn, which I love, potatoes, sweet potatoes, white flour, white rice, winter squashes, which are acorn and butternut included. And then these she calls, now these are also funky foods because they're combo of protein and fats and carbos. Okay, what does that mean? That means that these foods, they don't fit into the non-fat whole grain, the carbo area, and they don't fit into just the protein and fat area because they have both. They have carbohydrates and fats. So you really can't eat them at either type of a meal. So for now, to lose weight, avocados, buttermilk, coconuts, liver, believe it or not, low fat or whole milk, nuts, olives, and tofu. Those will be taken out while you're losing, just to make sure you can, just to make sure that you do it with as much ease as possible. Caffeine and alcohol. I don't do alcohol, so I don't really have to worry about this. I know some harder alcohols they don't have a lot of carbs, but I don't do that anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. Caffeinated coffees, teas, and sodas, not a problem for me. I can do that. I do decaf coffee. Cocoa, including unsweetened cocoa. So that is something that kind of stinks for now, but it's the way it is because of the insulin response. And now there is a cake that she has in one of her desserts, which you use baking chocolate in. So I need to research as to why that was okay, but this wasn't. Okay, so she gives you some examples of things that are okay over here, but proteins and fats, veggies, but there's a much bigger list in every book too, and it's basically it's almost everything, unless it's listed here. It's almost every kind of protein and fat or every kind of veggie, as long as it's not one of these here. Okay, so number one, we're going to eliminate the funky foods. Number two, eat fruit alone on an empty stomach. Let's talk about that for a minute. The thing about fruit is you have to have it, you should have it on an empty stomach, just because of digestive reasons. It moves quicker and it doesn't, help give indigestion, hold things up, things like that. It's just easier to digest. But if you're going to have it before a carbohydrate meal, with the carbohydrate meal is going to be either extremely low in fat or no fat if possible, you can have it 20 minutes before a carbohydrate meal, which is called a carbo meal. Okay, and if you're going to have it before like a pro-fats meal, which is like a low-carb meal, then you have to have it an hour before that kind of a meal. That way you don't have any issues with it. And after you have a meal, say if you want to have fruit for dessert, you have to have it 2 hours after your meal, and that is to keep from having that digestive issue. Now, again, this is a food combining concept. That's why things are set up this way. And I have to say that since I've been doing this, I have not had any indigestion at all. So that's been really great. All right, down to number three. Eat proteins and fats with your veggies. Easy enough. Eat carbos with veggies and no fat. Eat proteins and fats separate from carbos. That's pretty easy. Wait 3 hours between meals if you are switching from a protein and fats meal to a carbos meal, or vice versa. Do not skip meals like that. Eat 3 meals a day and eat until you feel full and satisfied and comfortably full. Okay, so this morning I am making some whole wheat pancakes, but I'm not putting the blueberries inside because I'm going to be using them on top. I got them out of my Plentifully Lean cookbook, and that's another thing, is that I can really use my fat-free baking books and my vegan plant-based cookbooks, because they're either no or very low fat, to use for my carbo meals, and there's just tons of ideas to make that happen there. I'm also having some egg whites here, and then I just put a little parsley, garlic, salt and pepper on that, and then get that all ready to go. So this is my breakfast with some nice hot tea, and I'm just really going to enjoy this. So I'm really finding so much freedom in using this summer sizing. I can do so much. There's so many possibilities for meal choices. Here's my lunch, just a lot of protein and some salad. And I make a lot of protein at the beginning of the week, different types. And so sometimes it's just kind of like a little bit of a buffet of different types of protein. And I'm having a flavored iced drink here. And here's one. It's just steak and green beans, easy peasy. Oats and egg whites next morning with nut pods and berries again, and I put a little bit of the whey protein powder in this time, and I just wanted it to maybe boost up the protein a bit, so I'm just trying to keep my protein level up as well. And this one is super low in fat. It's like 1.5 for a scoop, and I used a half a scoop because I just want to bump it up. And this is very low fat as well, the nut pods, and I'm just using a little splash of that. So dinner time comes around, and I have my smorgasbord of different proteins that I put together, and some broccoli. I had to run some errands, and I found out I needed enough at lunch, so I picked up one of these pepperoni mozzarellas, and I actually just ate one of them. That was enough to put a quell on my hunger. And I was just checking out the macros, super low in carbs. So it was good just to eat that near my protein fats meal. It didn't cause any issues. And then later I had a couple of baked drumsticks that I coated in almond meal, and some spices and some green beans for dinner. So this is called a pro-fats meal. And then this is a carbo meal again for breakfast. I am having my carbo meals in the morning. And so I've got the same thing, egg whites and pancakes, and some compote here. And I'm using a little bit of PB Fit. So there's a few things I'm still not having right now: the olives, nuts, except for the PB Fit, avocados, bananas, and I do miss those for a time, but for now I see the necessity. I'm really enjoying the Somersize program, and if you want to keep following along, I'd really appreciate that. There's almost nobody out there really that I can find who's doing this, so it would be nice to have some company. Not that you have to do it, but if you just keep following me along, that will really be a big encouragement. But I'm just going to continue to post what I'm doing, and at 57 years old, being able to see the weight loss is always exciting to me. So I'm going to continue to post and share, and I will see you guys next time.